In the quaint Midwestern town where I, Alina Martinez, lived, life had a rhythm as predictable as the ticking of an old clock. But ever since my mother passed away, that rhythm had been disrupted by the uninvited intrusions of two people, my mother-in-law, Helen, and my sister-in-law, Rachel. They had a knack for appearing at my doorstep just when I craved solitude the most. You know, Alina, it's quite rude to keep us waiting at the door, Helen would say with a tone dripping with passive aggression. I could see Rachel smirking beside her, her eyes scanning my living room like a hawk. Sorry, I wasn't expecting anyone. I'd reply, my voice strained with forced politeness. Their visits had become a dreaded routine. Each time they arrived, they expected to be entertained and catered to as if they were royalty, and I a mere servant in my own house. We're just here to keep you company, dear. You must be so lonely without your children, Helen would chide, settling herself comfortably on my couch. Rachel would follow suit, lounging as if she owned the place. And then would come the most irksome part. Alina, why don't you order us some steaks? We can't have our visit without a proper meal, Rachel would suggest, her voice sweet yet commanding. But it's almost 4 o'clock p.m., I would protest weakly. Helen would wave her hand dismissively. Nonsense, dear. It's never too late for a good meal. And make sure it's from that expensive place downtown. We deserve a treat, don't we, Rachel? As I begrudgingly placed the order, watching the numbers on the bill climb, I felt a mix of anger and helplessness. These steak dinners were bleeding me dry, yet I couldn't muster the courage to stand up to them. It was a financial strain I could ill afford, but Helen and Rachel seemed oblivious to my plight. What made it worse was my husband Michael's indifference. Whenever I tried to discuss the matter with him, his responses were dismissive at best. Their family, Alina. It's just a few steaks. Don't make a big deal out of it, Michael would say, avoiding my gaze. But it's every day, Michael. And it's not just about the money. They're taking advantage of our hospitality. I would argue, my frustration evident. Alina, they mean well. You're overreacting, he would conclude, effectively shutting down any further discussion. This pattern continued for 2 long years. 2 years of unannounced visits, expensive meals, and a growing sense of resentment. It felt like I was trapped in a cycle with no escape. But little did I know, the real storm was yet to come. A storm that would change everything. The routine continued, each day blending into the next with Helen and Rachel's unrelenting visits. However, one evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across my living room, Michael came home with a look on his face that spelled trouble. Alina, we need to talk, he said, his voice unusually stern. Sensing the gravity in his tone, I braced myself. What is it, Michael? He took a deep breath and, without any preamble, dropped the bombshell. My parents and Rachel's family are moving in with us next week. You need to clear out your room, he said. I felt the room spin around me. What, Michael? This is our home. You can't just decide that without discussing it with me. Michael's expression was cold, unyielding. It's decided, Alina. They need a place to stay, and it's high time we do our part for the family. But where am I supposed to go? My voice cracked, a mix of disbelief and hurt swelling within me. You figure it out. Maybe you can stay with a friend, he said dismissively. This was my family home, passed down to me from my parents. To be told I had no place in it was more than just an insult. It was a betrayal of the worst kind. I stood there numb as Michael continued. You're always complaining about Helen and Rachel. This way you won't have to deal with them anymore. His words were like daggers, each one cutting deeper than the last. I realized then that the man standing before me was not the Michael I had married. He had become a stranger, one who valued his family over his wife. As Michael walked away, leaving me standing alone in the dimly lit room, a fire ignited within me. A fire of anger, yes, but more than that, a determination to stand up for myself. I'll clear out the house, I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside me. But not in the way you expect. Michael paused, turning back with a smirk. I thought you'd put up more of a fight, but if you're being sensible for once, that's good. He didn't understand. He couldn't see the resolve that had taken hold in me. For years, I had been the dutiful wife, bending over backward to accommodate his and his family's whims. But not anymore. The next morning, as Michael left for his business trip, I took my first step toward freedom. I picked up the phone and dialed a number I had found the night before. My voice was calm, my instructions clear. Yes, I'd like to schedule a pickup for all my furniture and appliances. I said, a sense of empowerment growing with each word, and I need it done before the end of this week. As I hung up the phone, a sense of exhilaration washed over me. It was the beginning of my revenge, a plan meticulously crafted to turn the tables on those who had wronged me. Michael thought he had won, but he was gravely mistaken. The house would be cleared out, yes, but it would be empty for him and his precious family. I was taking back control, one step at a time. The next few days were a whirlwind of activity. I coordinated with movers, arranged for the sale of furniture, and secretly packed my personal belongings. Every item that held sentimental value to me was carefully boxed up, ready to be transported to my new temporary refuge, my son's apartment in the city. As the movers worked, the house began to echo with the emptiness of its soon-to-be barren rooms. Each piece of furniture that left the house felt like shedding a layer of the life I had built here, but with it, a weight lifted off my shoulders. The day before Michael's return, the house stood empty, a hollow shell of its former warmth. I took one last look around, memories flashing through my mind. Laughter, tears, moments cherished, and now left behind. But this was no time for nostalgia. It was time for retribution. I left a note on the barren kitchen counter. Its words succinct. Michael, as per your request, I have cleared out the house. Good luck with your new living arrangements, Alina. With that, I turned my back on the life I had known and headed to the city, a mix of apprehension and excitement for what lay ahead. Upon arriving at my son's apartment, his welcome was warm but tinged with concern. Mom, are you sure about this? He asked, his brow furrowed. I've never been more certain, I replied, my resolve unwavering. That evening, as anticipated, my phone rang. It was Michael, his voice a cocktail of confusion and rage. Alina, what the hell have you done? The house is empty. Yes, Michael, you said to clear out my room. I took it to mean the entire house, I responded coolly. That's not what I meant, and you know it. Where are you? What about all our stuff? He demanded. I've taken what's mine. The rest is for you to figure out, I said, a sense of satisfaction creeping into my voice. You can't do this to me, to us. Michael's voice cracked with desperation. Funny, I thought the same when you decided to kick me out of my own house, I retorted. The line went silent for a moment before Michael hung up. I knew this was just the beginning, but it was a start to taking back my life and dignity. Sitting in the quiet of my son's apartment, I realized this was more than just revenge. It was a statement that I was no longer the Alina who would be walked over and disregarded. This was a new chapter, one where I would be the author of my own story. The next morning, the gray light of dawn filtered through the curtains of my son's apartment, bringing with it a sense of anticipation. My phone rang, the caller ID flashing Michael's name. I answered, bracing myself for the onslaught. Alina, you've got to come back. This is madness. Michael's voice was a mix of anger and disbelief. I'm not coming back, Michael. You made it clear I wasn't wanted, I replied, my voice steady. You can't just sell all our things and leave. What about us? What about our marriage? The desperation in his voice was palpable. Us? Our marriage? I scoffed. That ended when you chose your family over me in my own home. There was silence on the other end. I knew I had hit a nerve. It was then that I revealed the full extent of my actions. Also, Michael, I've started the process of selling the house. As you so eloquently put it, it doesn't matter who it originally belonged to. You can't do that, Alina. It's my home too. His voice was rising in panic now. Not anymore, Michael. And since you're so concerned about family, I'm sure Helen and Rachel can help you find a new place. The line went dead. I knew this wasn't the end of it, but for the first time in years, I felt in control of my destiny. Later that day, Rachel called, her voice dripping with venom. "You backstabbing witch. How could you do this to us? Where are we supposed to go?" "The same place you expected me to go," I replied coldly. "You and Helen were so eager to take over my home. I'm sure you can figure something out. You'll pay for this, Alina. You think you're so clever, but you're nothing without us." Rachel hissed before hanging up. Their threats and pleas continued over the next few days, but I remained resolute. I had spent too many years being manipulated and undermined. It was time they faced the consequences of their actions. As I started my new job in the city, a sense of liberation enveloped me. I was no longer the doormat Alina, but a woman who stood up for herself. The drama and chaos of my past life felt like a distant memory as I embraced this new chapter. In the end, my revenge wasn't just about emptying a house or selling off property. It was about reclaiming my self-worth and dignity. Michael, Helen, and Rachel had underestimated me for the last time. Now they were left to deal with the mess they had created. While I finally moved forward, free from their toxic grasp, weeks turned into months, and my life in the city started to take on a rhythm of its own. The calls from Michael, Helen, and Rachel became less frequent, their voices losing the battle against my newfound resolve. I had started to build a life for myself, one that was free from their manipulation and control. One afternoon, as I sat in my modest but cozy apartment, my lawyer called with news. "Alina, the court has finalized your divorce, and the house, it's legally yours." Michael's claim was denied. A wave of relief washed over me. This was more than just a legal victory. It was vindication. It was proof that I had been right to stand up for myself, to fight back against the injustice that had been thrust upon me. "But how? That house is all I have." Michael's incredulous voice echoed through the phone later that day. "You made your choices, Michael. You chose your family over your wife. Now you live with those choices," I said, the finality in my voice mirroring the closure I felt inside. "But, Alina, where will I go? I have nothing," he pleaded. "That's not my concern anymore, Michael. You should have thought of that before," I replied before hanging up. In the weeks that followed, rumors reached me through friends still living in my hometown. Michael, Helen, and Rachel had been forced to move into a rundown apartment on the outskirts of town. Their once comfortable lives had become a daily struggle, a stark contrast to the luxury they had once taken for granted. I heard about Helen and Rachel's constant bickering, their relationship strained under the weight of their new reality. Michael, it seemed, had taken to gambling, hoping to win back some of their lost fortune, but only sinking deeper into despair. These stories, once a source of pain, now seemed distant, almost foreign. I had moved on, building a life that was mine and mine alone. My job in the city was fulfilling, and my evenings were spent exploring my newfound freedom. One day, as I walked through the bustling city streets, I bumped into Anthony, a friend from my hometown who had also moved to the city. We shared our stories, finding solace in our mutual experiences. "Alina, it's incredible how much you've changed. You're like a completely different person," Anthony said, admiration in his eyes. "I had to change, Anthony. It was the only way to save myself," I replied, a smile playing on my lips. As we talked, I realized that Anthony and I had more in common than our past. We both had been through trials that had shaped us, made us stronger, and in that strength, we found a connection. Life had taken me on a journey I never expected. I have faced my fears, stood up to those who had wronged me, and come out stronger on the other side. My story was one of transformation, of a woman who reclaimed her life from the ashes of her past. And as I looked ahead, I knew that whatever the future held, I was ready for it. With my head held high and my spirit unbroken, I stepped forward into my new life, a life where I was the author of my own destiny.
Patricia stood by my hospital bed, pretending to be concerned. "Such a shame about the brake failure," she said, trying to look sympathetic, but I could see the slight smile she tried to hide. She watched me struggle to reach for my water glass, clearly enjoying my pain. I'm Emma Carter, and 3 days ago, my mother-in-law tried to kill me. It happened on a quiet Sunday afternoon. I was driving home from my nursing shift when my brakes failed on Mason Hill Road, the steepest street in our town. The brake pedal went straight to the floor, and nothing could stop the car. But instead of panicking, I used my emergency training. I downshifted, pulled the emergency brake, and steered the car into a ditch. It saved my life. I knew then that the accident wasn't an accident at all. Earlier that day, Mike, the mechanic who checked my car, showed me his phone with a serious look. "Someone cut your brake lines on purpose," he said. He even had security footage showing Patricia sneaking into his shop the night before, wearing big sunglasses to hide her face. She said she was just there to borrow some sugar. Patricia never liked me. From the day I married her son James 5 years ago, she made it clear that I wasn't the kind of wife she wanted for him. I was just a nurse from a middle-class family, not the high society woman she had imagined. But I never thought she hated me enough to kill me. Patricia adjusted her scarf and continued, "The doctors say you're recovering well." What a relief. James was so worried. "Good thing you both got that life insurance policy last month. The one I recommended." There it was, the $2 million life insurance policy Patricia insisted we get, with her as the backup beneficiary. At the time, it seemed like just another one of her controlling ideas. But now, lying in his hospital bed, it was obvious why she wanted it so badly. "Yes, good thing," I replied, keeping my voice steady. "The police should finish their investigation soon." I watched her face closely. Her calm mask slipped just a little. "Investigation?" She tried to laugh. "That's not necessary for a simple accident, is it?" "Oh, didn't you know?" I said. "They found evidence of tampering. They're checking all the security cameras in the area." Patricia gripped her purse tighter. "I'm sure it's just a formality," she said quickly. "Small-town police always make a big deal out of nothing." Just then, James walked in, looking tired but relieved to see me. "Hey, love. How are you feeling?" he asked, his smile warm and genuine. "Better now that you're here," I said, grateful for his support. No matter how hard Patricia tried to cause problems, James always stood by me. Patricia put on her fake worried mom look. "James, you should take a break. I'll stay with Emma." "Actually, Mom," James said, hesitating. "The nurse mentioned some unusual bruising on Emma. They think the police should look into it." Patricia's face went pale. "The police?" she stammered. "They think someone did this on purpose. They're checking all possibilities," James said, "including brake tampering." Patricia put her hand to her throat, pretending to be shocked. Who would do such a thing? I looked her right in the eyes. "Yes," I said. "Who indeed?" Patricia quickly made up an excuse about a charity meeting and hurried out. James and I exchanged a look. He'd noticed her panic, too. What Patricia didn't know was that Mike gave all the evidence, the cut brake lines, the security footage, to the police. She thought she had the perfect plan to get rid of me, but her scheme was about to blow up in her face. As I lay in my hospital bed, I realized Patricia wasn't just trying to kill me. She had been manipulating us for years, but her plan had failed, and now the truth was coming out. The fight wasn't over, it was just getting started. Patricia visited me in the hospital, still pretending to be concerned. She didn't know that her world was about to fall apart. A few days later, Detective Martinez questioned her right in my hospital room. "Mrs. Shaw," the detective said, using Patricia's maiden name, "why was your car seen at Morgan's auto shop the night before the accident?" Patricia tried to stay calm, but I saw her confidence start to crack. James stood by the window, watching his mother with disbelief. "I was just borrowing sugar from Emma and James's house," Patricia said quickly. "I must have driven by the shop on my way home." At 11:30 p.m., Detective Martinez raised an eyebrow. "That's pretty late for baking." Patricia's hand shook as she adjusted her fancy watch. "I host charity brunches. They require a lot of planning." The detective didn't back down. "The security footage shows you spending 20 minutes under Emma's car. That's a long time to be borrowing sugar." Patricia turned pale. She hadn't realized that the shop had new security cameras. Mike had shown me the video, clear as day, of Patricia cutting the brake lines. "There's been a mistake," Patricia said, her voice losing its usual confidence. "I would never. Emma is like a daughter to me." I almost laughed. Patricia had spent 5 years trying to ruin my marriage. She always found ways to exclude me from family events and constantly told James he could do better. James stepped forward, his face hard. Mom, they found your fingerprints on the brake lines. Patricia looked at him in shock. James, you don't believe this, do you? They also found the wire cutters in your garden shed. He continued, his voice shaking, with Emma's blood on them. Patricia's carefully built world started to collapse. The police had searched her house and found the wire cutters she used. They also found a letter she was writing to the life insurance company hated before my accident. I can explain, Patricia started, but Detective Martinez didn't let her. We also found something interesting about the life insurance policy on your first daughter-in-law, the detective said. I looked at James confused. I didn't know about this. James's first wife, Sarah, had died in an accident 10 years ago, before I met him. Patricia never talked about her, except to make comparisons that made me feel like I didn't measure up. That was different, Patricia snapped, then quickly shut her mouth, realizing her mistake. Detective Martinez leaned in. Different how? The room went quiet. James's face went pale as he realized what Patricia was admitting. Mom, he whispered, his voice shaking. What did you do to Sarah? Patricia jumped up, clutching her purse. I don't have to listen to this. I'm leaving. But Detective Martinez had other plans. She nodded to two officers standing at the door. Mrs. Shaw, we need you to come with us. We have questions about Sarah Thompson's accident in 2013. As the officers led Patricia away, her usual calm was gone. She struggled, her hair falling out of place. James, you can't let them do this. I did it all for you. But James didn't move. He sat next to me, holding my hand as we watched his mother being taken away. When she was gone, he looked at me, his eyes full of pain. I can't believe Sarah's accident. I never even questioned it, he said, his voice breaking. Mom always told me Sarah wouldn't want me to grieve too long. I squeezed his hand, thinking about how close Patricia had come to getting rid of me too. But unlike Sarah, I had survived, and I had exposed Patricia for who she really was. Detective Martinez turned to us. We're reopening the investigation into Sarah Thompson's death. Mr. Carter, we'll need to talk to you about your mother's actions back then. James nodded, still in shock. I remembered Patricia's smug smile when she visited me in the hospital, thinking she had won. But she had underestimated me. Her perfect plan had failed, and instead of getting another insurance payout, she was facing prison for both my attempted murder and the death of James's first wife. The game was over, and Patricia had lost everything. The trial happened 6 months after my accident. I was fully healed but more aware of how close I'd come to dying. Patricia sat at the defendant's table, no longer polished and perfect. Her fancy clothes were replaced by plain ones, and gray roots showed in her once perfect hair. The evidence against her was clear. The courtroom watched security footage of Patricia cutting my brake lines. They showed the life insurance policy she took out on me and on Sarah, James's first wife. But what really sealed her fate was the new evidence about Sarah's death. The investigation into Sarah Thompson's death showed that her car was tampered with, just like Emma's, the prosecutor told the jury. We found Patricia Shaw's fingerprints on documents canceling an autopsy, papers she had no right to sign. I glanced at James. He listened to the details of Sarah's death, his face tense. I could see the pain and anger he had been hiding for years. When he testified, his voice was steady, but his words were sharp. My mother controlled everything, he said, looking right at Patricia. She picked my friends, my career, even my wives. But when they didn't fit her idea of perfect, she got rid of them. He paused, his voice breaking just a little. She killed them. Patricia tried to defend herself by claiming she was protecting James from gold diggers and social climbers. But the facts told a different story. Sarah and I both had our own jobs and money. The only threat we posed was to Patricia's control over her son's life. It took the jury less than 3 hours to decide. On the charge of attempted murder of Emma Carter, we find the defendant guilty. On the charge of first-degree murder of Sarah Thompson, we find the defendant guilty. Patricia finally lost her calm. James, she screamed as the guards took her away. I did it all for you. They weren't good enough for you. But James didn't look at her. He held my hand as the judge sentenced her to life in prison without parole. Reporters surrounded us as we left the courthouse. How does it feel to know your mother-in-law tried to kill you? One asked, "Do you have any comments on solving Sarah Thompson's case?" James put his arm around me protectively and said, "My mother caused pain to a lot of people. Today justice was served. That's all we have to say." That evening, we sat in our living room, still processing everything. The house felt lighter, as if a heavy weight had been lifted. I talked to Sarah's parents after the trial. James said quietly, "They always felt something was off about her accident but couldn't prove it. They thanked us for helping them find the truth." I held his hand. "They have closure now. So do we." James let out a bitter laugh. "You know the sad part? Mom was always scared of losing me, of losing her place in my life. In the end, she did just that. Her actions pushed me away." The doorbell rang. It was Mike, the mechanic whose security footage was key to convicting Patricia. He stood awkwardly at the door. "I just wanted to see how you're doing, Mrs. Carter." When I saw those cut brake lines, he shook his head. "Well, I'm glad you're still here. Some people get what they deserve." After Mike left, I thought about Patricia, now alone in a prison cell. Her need for control cost her everything: her freedom, her son's love, and her image of being the perfect mother. That night, James and I sat on the porch, watching the sunset. The air was warm and smelled of summer. For the first time in months, I felt truly at peace. James looked at me and asked, "What now?" I smiled, thinking about the future, a future without Patricia's dark influence. Now we live our lives the way we want. No more looking over our shoulders. No more fear. Patricia had tried to end my story, but she ended her own instead. And my story was just beginning. Sometimes justice comes in unexpected ways. And sometimes surviving is the best revenge. Your mother is dead to us. Amanda's voice slithered through the air like poison as she knelt before my children. Her lips curled in a wicked smirk. Your dad's new wife is your real mom now. Isn't that right, kids? Emma, just 8 years old, pressed her trembling hands to her ears, while 6-year-old Lucas clutched his sister's arm, his sobs silent but gut-wrenching. I stood frozen in the doorway of my ex-husband's house, my pulse roaring in my ears. I had come to pick them up from their weekend visit, only to walk into this. "That's enough, Amanda," I said, forcing my voice to stay steady despite the fury surging inside me. Years of medical training had taught me how to maintain control in the face of chaos. "Emma, Lucas, get your bags. We're leaving." Amanda turned to me, her manicured nails tapping against the granite countertop, her expression dripping with satisfaction. "Oh look, the abandoned wife finally graces us with her presence." Her eyes flicked over me, searching for cracks in my armor. "How does it feel knowing Mark traded you in for someone younger? Prettier?" I ignored her. She wasn't worth my breath. My children were. "Come on, sweethearts," I murmured, kneeling to their level. "Mom's here now." It had been 6 months since Mark walked out, leaving behind the wreckage of our marriage for his perky, wide-eyed dental hygienist, Jessica. The divorce had been brutal, but I had fought to keep things civil for the sake of my children. Amanda, however, had waged a private war, one she intended to win by turning Emma and Lucas against me. We barely made it to the car before Lucas broke the silence. "Aunt Amanda said you didn't love us enough to keep our family together," he whispered, his little fingers curling tightly around mine. The words gutted me. I crouched in front of him, brushing his tear-streaked cheek with my thumb. "Lucas, sweetheart, listen to me. Sometimes grown-ups stop loving each other, but that has nothing to do with how much we love you. I will always, always love you and Emma more than anything in this world." Emma stood a few feet away, her arms crossed. At 8, she was trying to make sense of something far beyond her years. Then why did Daddy leave? Why does he love Jessica more than us? My throat tightened. "Get in the car, baby," I said gently. "We'll talk about this at home." As I pulled out of the driveway, I saw Amanda standing at the window, watching, smirking. She had resented me from the beginning, the ambitious trauma surgeon who had put herself through medical school while her brother was still finding himself. When Mark left, she had finally been set free to spit out the venom she had kept bottled up for years. The drive home was thick with silence, heavy with questions too painful to answer in a single car ride. I thought about the years of Amanda's snide remarks, the whispered accusations that my career had made me a bad wife, the way she had delighted in my downfall. Back home, I made hot chocolate, the ritual that had always soothed my children's worst days. As they clutched their mugs, I searched for the right words. You know how sometimes at school, you might stop being friends with someone? I asked gently. It doesn't mean either of you is bad, just that you've grown apart. That's what happened with Daddy and me. But that doesn't change how much we both love you. Emma frowned. Aunt Amanda says Daddy chose Jessica because she's younger and prettier. I exhaled slowly, suppressing the ache those words ignited. Beauty isn't just about looks, sweetheart. It's about kindness, about how you treat people. It's about love. Lucas climbed onto my lap, pressing his chocolate sticky cheek against my shoulder. I don't want a new mom. I want you. I wrapped both of them in my arms, holding them as tightly as I could. And you have me. Always. That night, after I tucked them into bed, I sat alone in my home office, staring at the framed family photos I still couldn't bring myself to take down. My phone buzzed. A message from Amanda. The kids deserve better than a mother who puts her career first. They're better off with Jessica. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened my laptop and began documenting everything. The insults, the manipulation, the emotional warfare. Something told me I would need this record soon. And I was right. Because what came next would test everything I believed about love, about justice, and about how far I would go to protect my children. 3 months passed in a blur of hospital shifts, custody exchanges, and the exhausting effort of rebuilding my children's confidence. Emma and Lucas were in therapy, slowly unraveling the tangled emotions of their father's betrayal and Amanda's relentless poison. I documented every cruel remark, every manipulative whisper, building a case to limit their exposure to her toxicity. Then came the night that changed everything. I was midway through a grueling 12-hour shift in the ER when the double doors burst open. Paramedics rushed in, their voices sharp and urgent. Female, mid-30s, severe allergic reaction. Airways closing fast, she's crashing. I turned and the world tilted. Amanda lay on the gurney, her face grotesquely swollen, gasping for breath. Behind her, my ex-husband Mark kept pace, his face ashen. She ate something with shellfish, he stammered. She didn't know. Dr. Carter, the head nurse, interrupted. We need you now. For one split second, I hesitated. The woman before me, the one now clawing at her throat, fighting for air, had spent months trying to tear my children from me. Just last week, she had told Emma that I chose work over my family, that I wanted to be away from them. Now her life was in my hands. Get me an epinephrine injection, I ordered, pushing everything aside, and start an IV line. I wasn't a mother in this moment. I wasn't the woman she had tried to break. I was a doctor, and doctors saved lives, even when they didn't deserve it. Dr. Carter, her throat's completely closed. No time. No hesitation. Emergency tracheotomy. Now. Mark paled. Wait. Alex is doing the surgery. Can't someone else? There isn't time, I snapped, already making the first incision. She'll die if we wait. The next 20 minutes were a storm of precision and adrenaline. My hands never wavered. My mind stayed sharp. I shut out the memories, the barbed insults, the gleeful jabs, the damage done to my children, and did what I was trained to do. And then, her breathing steadied. The immediate danger passed. She's stable, I announced, stripping off my gloves. Start her on antihistamines. Keep her overnight. As I turned to leave, Mark caught my arm. Alex, thank you. I know things haven't been. I took an oath. I interrupted, my voice steel. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have other patients. I made it halfway down the hallway before ducking into an empty consultation room. My hands trembled as the adrenaline wore off. I had just saved the life of the woman who had spent the last year trying to destroy mine. The confrontation. The next morning, as I finished my shift, Amanda's nurse approached me. She's asking for you. Want me to tell her you're unavailable? I should. But something in me whispered go. When I stepped into Amanda's room, she was propped up in bed, the swelling in her face reduced. She looked smaller, defenseless without her usual armor of makeup and contempt. How are you feeling? I kept my tone neutral, professional. Like I almost died, she rasped, and like I owe you my life. I flipped through her charts. The emergency team did their job. Be more careful about what you eat. Alex, she said softly. I stilled. She had never called me by my name before. I know what I've done to you. To the kids, I've been, she swallowed. Horrible doesn't even begin to cover it. I sighed. This isn't necessary. It is, she insisted. Because when I was lying there, unable to breathe, all I could think about was how cruel I've been. How I've hurt those kids because I was jealous of you. I blinked. Jealous. Tears welled in her eyes. You've always been. Everything I wasn't. The successful doctor, the amazing mother. Even after Mark left, you held it together. I wanted to prove you weren't as perfect as everyone thought. I wanted to hurt you. By hurting my children? My voice wavered. Her lip trembled. I was wrong. So wrong. And then last night, you saved me without hesitation. You had every reason to walk away, but you didn't. I sank into the chair beside her bed, exhaustion pressing down on me. Amanda, I'm not perfect, I murmured. I've made mistakes. Plenty of them. But my children? They're the one thing I've done right. And watching you try to turn them against me, that's been the hardest thing I've ever endured. She reached for my hand. And this time, I didn't pull away. I'm so sorry, Alex. I know it doesn't fix anything, but I am truly, deeply sorry. For the first time since meeting Amanda, I saw something real. Not malice. Not manipulation. Just regret. I exhaled slowly. The kids have therapy on Thursday. If you're really sorry, you'll tell them the truth. About everything. She nodded, tears spilling over. I will. I promise. As I left her room, something inside me shifted. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But something lighter. The smallest possibility that maybe, just maybe, my children wouldn't have to grow up carrying the weight of Amanda's hatred. The aftermath. That night, as I tucked Emma and Lucas into bed, Emma hesitated. Mom, is Aunt Amanda going to be okay? Yes, sweetie, I murmured, smoothing her hair. She's going to be fine. Lucas blinked sleepily. Did you save her? I smiled faintly. I did what doctors do. I helped someone who needed help. Emma frowned. Even though she's mean to us. I thought for a moment. Sometimes, I said carefully, being kind to people who haven't been kind to us changes things in ways we never expect. As I turned out their lights, I realized how true that was. Tomorrow would bring new battles. Amanda's apology didn't erase the past. But for the first time in months, I had hope. Hope that wounds could heal. That truth could mend what lies had broken. That maybe, just maybe, kindness had the power to change everything. Thursday arrived faster than I expected. In the waiting room of Dr. Peters' office, Emma and Lucas sat quietly, coloring while we waited for Amanda. When she walked in, she lacked her usual confident stride. Instead, she clutched her purse as if it were a shield, her eyes searching the room nervously. Aunt Amanda. Emma looked up, surprised. Are you sick again? No, sweetheart, Amanda replied softly. I'm here to talk to you and Lucas. To tell you some very important things. Dr. Peters welcomed us into her office, arranging the chairs in a small circle. Lucas immediately climbed into my lap, while Emma sat between Amanda and me, her eyes flickering with uncertainty. Amanda has something she'd like to share with you both. Dr. Peters began gently. Remember how we talked about feelings being complicated and how it's okay to feel different things at the same time? Both children nodded. Amanda took a deep breath. Emma, Lucas, she began, her voice trembling slightly. I need to tell you that I was very wrong about a lot of things. I said things about your mom that weren't true, and that wasn't fair, to you or to her. Lucas tightened his grip on my hand, like when he said Mommy didn't love us. Amanda's eyes filled with tears. Yes, exactly like that. Those were lies, and I'm so sorry I told them. Your mom loves you more than anything in the world. She's an amazing mother who would do anything for you. Emma frowned, her voice sharp with hurt. Then why did you say those mean things? Why did you try to make us love Jessica more? Amanda swallowed hard. Because I was jealous, she admitted. I was angry about things that had nothing to do with you, and I took it out on you and your mom. That was wrong of me. As Amanda continued, she apologized for specific moments, unraveling the web of lies she had spun. I watched as Emma and Lucas absorbed her words, their expressions shifting between confusion, hurt, and something softer, understanding. Your mother proved what kind of person she is when I was in the hospital. Amanda continued. She saved my life, even though I had been horrible to her. That's the kind of person your mom is, someone who helps others, even when they don't deserve it. Emma turned to me, her wide eyes filled with wonder. Is that true, Mom? Did you really save Aunt Amanda? I nodded. It's what doctors do, honey. We help people who need help. Even mean people? Lucas asked innocently. Even mean people, I confirmed. Because sometimes people can change and become better. Dr. Peters guided the conversation, helping Emma and Lucas express their feelings. Amanda listened, really listened, as they shared how her words had confused and hurt them. I don't expect you to forgive me right away, Amanda told them sincerely. What I did was wrong, and I understand if it takes time to trust me again. But I promise I'm going to try to be a better aunt to you both. As the session ended, a weight I hadn't realized I was carrying lifted slightly. It wasn't perfect. The past couldn't be undone. But it was a start. In the parking lot, Amanda hesitated before speaking. Alex, I've been thinking. I want to talk to Mark about modifying the custody arrangements. The kids shouldn't have to go through so many changeovers. They need more stability, with you. I studied her, looking for any sign of manipulation, but found only sincerity. Thank you, I said simply. Over the next few months, things shifted. Amanda kept her word, not just stopping her campaign against me, but actively working to repair the damage. She even spoke to Mark, encouraging him to be more present in the kids' lives instead of trying to replace me with Jessica. One Sunday afternoon, while I was in the garden with Emma and Lucas, Amanda stopped by, holding out a small paper bag. Peace offering, she said hesitantly. Seed packets. I thought the kids might like to learn about growing their own food. Emma, who had been wary of Amanda's changes, brightened. Can we plant tomatoes, Mom? Like the ones in the hospital garden you told us about. As I watched Amanda kneel beside them, patiently explaining how to plant each seed, I realized something. Change wasn't always grand gestures. Sometimes it was in the quiet moments, the small steps toward something better. That night, as I tucked the kids into bed, Emma asked, Mom, is it okay that I'm starting to like Aunt Amanda again? I smoothed her hair. Of course it is, sweetheart. People can change when they really want to. And it seems like Aunt Amanda really wants to. Because you saved her? Lucas piped up from his bed. I thought for a moment. No, I said softly. I think sometimes people save themselves. They just need a reason to try. As I closed their bedroom door, I exhaled. The emergency that had brought Amanda to my operating table hadn't just saved her life. It had given our family a chance to heal. There were still difficult moments, still wounds that would take time to mend. But we were moving forward. And sometimes that was the biggest victory of all. My mother-in-law, Margaret, yelled loudly in the hospital, waving a folder of papers. She's unstable. She needs to be committed right now. I sat quietly, feeling oddly calm, my hand resting on a small USB drive in my pocket. My name is Olivia Parker. I'm 34 years old, and I never thought I'd be in a psychiatric emergency room while my mother-in-law tried to convince doctors that I was losing my mind. But Margaret always found ways to try to get rid of me. She talks to herself all the time, Margaret continued, pretending to be worried. She has angry outbursts and crazy ideas. Just last week, she accused me of messing with her medication. The young doctor looked at me, clearly confused by the difference between Margaret's words and my calm appearance. What Margaret didn't know was that I had been preparing for this for months. I first became suspicious 6 months ago when I overheard her talking on the phone. Don't worry, I have a plan, she told her friend. She won't be in my son's life much longer. I just need enough evidence. I married her son, David, 3 years ago. From the beginning, Margaret made it clear that I wasn't the kind of wife she wanted for him. I didn't come from the right family, and I encouraged David to start his own business instead of joining his father's law firm. She's isolating David from us. Margaret's voice shook as if she were hurt. He barely visits anymore, and when he does, she watches his every move. I almost laughed at the irony, but the situation was too serious. The truth was, David had chosen to distance himself from his family's controlling behavior. He wanted to run his own sustainable energy business, not become a corporate lawyer like his parents wanted. But Margaret blamed me for his choices. Dr. Stevens, the doctor, looked at the papers Margaret had given him. These are serious claims, Mrs. Harrison, he said, but we need to do our own evaluation. Margaret's face tightened for a moment. her perfect act slipping. But I have proof, she said, showing more papers. Look at these messages and emails. She's clearly unstable. I had to admit she was thorough. She had created fake evidence, including edited screenshots, fake diary entries, and statements from concerned neighbors who didn't even exist. Dr. Stevens turned to me. Mrs. Parker, would you like to respond to these accusations? I smiled calmly, my hand still on the USB drive. I'd like to speak with you alone, doctor. Margaret's eyes narrowed. No, she'll lie to you. She's very manipulative. Dr. Stevens stayed calm. Mrs. Harrison, it's standard to speak to the patient in private. Please wait outside. Margaret tried to argue, but a nurse gently led her to the waiting room. She looked back at me angrily, clearly upset that her plan wasn't going perfectly. Once we were alone, Dr. Stevens asked, would you like to tell me your side of the story? I took out the USB drive. I'd like to show you this first. He took the drive. What's on it? 6 months of evidence showing that my mother-in-law has been trying to make me look unstable. There are videos, phone recordings, and detailed notes of everything she's done, including planning this visit to the hospital. Dr. Stevens plugged the USB drive into his computer. As he watched the videos of Margaret planting fake evidence, listened to her phone calls, and read my notes, his face became serious. I set up security cameras after I heard her plotting against me, I explained. Everything is dated and verified. I also have reports from my own doctor and therapist confirming my mental health. Dr. Stevens looked at me. Mrs. Parker, this is very troubling. But it's about your mother-in-law, not you. Her actions seem very calculated. I nodded. That's why I documented everything. I knew she was planning something like this. Does your husband know? He asked. No, he's on a business trip until tomorrow. Margaret knew that and planned this for when he was away. She wanted me committed before he came back. Dr. Stevens made some notes. You've handled this incredibly well. Most people would have reacted emotionally to such harassment. I knew that's what she wanted, for me to act out and prove her right. So I stayed calm and kept records. Dr. Stevens stood up. Mrs. Parker, what she did, trying to get you committed with false evidence, is a serious crime. Are you willing to file a formal complaint? I felt relief wash over me. Yes, it's time she faced the consequences. As he went to make his calls, I thought about Margaret sitting in the waiting room, probably imagining me being taken away in restraints. She had no idea that her plan was falling apart. The USB drive had been my safeguard, my proof of the truth. Now it would be her downfall. I pulled out my phone and texted David. It was time he learned what his mother had been doing. The emergency room was busy, but I stayed calm, ignoring the 3 missed calls from Robert, Margaret's husband. She must have called him when her plan started falling apart. I put my phone on silent as Dr. Stevens returned with 2 police officers. Mrs. Parker, one of the officers said, introducing himself as Detective Morris, we need your statement about these allegations of attempted false commitment. I nodded, noticing Margaret pacing on the other side of the glass wall. Her face turned pale when she saw the police. She's been planning this for months, I explained, showing the detective more evidence on my phone. Here's a recording from last month where she talks about getting me out of the picture with her friend Sandra. And these are emails she sent to doctors, trying to create a fake history of mental issues for me. Detective Morris looked through the evidence, his expression grown serious. This is detailed. The amount of planning is worrying. My phone buzzed with a text from David. Landing early. What's going on? Dad called saying Mom's at the hospital with you? I quickly replied, I'm fine. Your mom tried to have me committed. Come to Memorial Hospital. Bring your laptop. Dr. Stevens asked, would you like us to speak with Mrs. Harrison now? Before I could respond, Margaret stormed into the room. Her calm act was gone. Why are the police here? This is a private family matter. Detective Morris faced her. Mrs. Harrison, we need to talk about your attempt to falsely commit your daughter-in-law to a psychiatric facility. Margaret's face twisted with anger. I was trying to help her. She's unstable. She's been spying on me. Isn't that proof she's paranoid? I couldn't help but smile. No, Margaret. It shows I was ready. Every time you showed up uninvited, planted fake evidence, or plotted against me, it's all recorded. Her face turned red with rage. You little mother. David's voice cut through the tension. He stood in the doorway, laptop in hand, his face filled with confusion and anger. What did you do? Margaret's demeanor changed instantly. David, thank goodness you're here. I was just trying to help Olivia. She's not well. I was only. Stop, David interrupted firmly, setting up his laptop. I want to see all this evidence. For the next half hour, David watched the security footage of Margaret sneaking around our house. He listened to her phone conversations where she plotted against me and read her manipulative emails to doctors. With each piece of evidence, his face grew darker. You did all of this? David asked, his voice heavy with disbelief. You tried to get my wife committed. Margaret's eyes filled with fake tears. I was protecting you. She's changed you, turned you against us, convinced you to throw away your future on that stupid energy business. David cut her off. My business is successful. I'm happy. Olivia supports me. The only one tearing this family apart is you. Detective Morris spoke up. Mrs. Harrison, you'll need to come to the station to make a formal statement. Margaret's plan was crumbling, her perfect image shattered. Her son was seeing her true colors for the first time. David, she begged, you can't let them do this. I'm your mother. Yes, David said quietly, his eyes cold. Which makes this even worse. He looked at me. Olivia, do you want to press charges? I looked at Margaret, seeing not a powerful enemy, but a desperate, broken woman. That depends on Margaret. If she agrees to get counseling and keep her distance, we can handle this privately. But if not... Margaret's mouth dropped open. You're blackmailing me? I shook my head. No, I'm giving you a chance to fix this before it gets worse. It's your choice. Margaret realized she was out of options. Her shoulders slumped, her fight gone. Fine, she whispered. I'll get counseling. David wrapped his arm around me. I'm so sorry, he said softly. I had no idea she could do this. The police took Margaret's statement, and Dr. Stevens documented her attempt to falsely commit me. It was over. Her plan had failed, undone by the very things she accused me of. Careful observation and preparation. As the police led Margaret out, David turned to me. How did you stay so calm through all of this? I smiled, thinking of the months of planning, the careful collection of evidence, and the patience it took. Sometimes the best way to win is to let someone think they're winning, until they lose everything. 3 months after Margaret tried to have me committed, life slowly returned to normal. Things were different though. Margaret went to counseling every week, just as she had promised. David added more security to our house, and family gatherings felt different now, quieter, more careful. One morning, I was having coffee in our backyard when David handed me an envelope. Letter from Mom, he said. As part of her therapy, Margaret wrote me letters every week to practice better communication and respect boundaries. The letter began, Dear Olivia, today in therapy, we talked about control and why I felt the need to have it. I realized my actions weren't really about you. They were about my own fear of losing influence over David's life. At first, her letters were full of excuses, but over time, they became more sincere, showing she was trying to understand and make things right. It would take a while for me to trust her again, but I appreciated her effort. How is she doing? I asked David. He still met with his mom once a week, but only in public places as we agreed. Better, he said, sitting beside me. She actually asked about my business yesterday. No comments about law school or my wasted potential. It's progress, I guess. The hospital incident had forced a lot of truths into the open. David finally talked to his father about all the years of pressure and control. Robert, shocked by Margaret's actions, started going to counseling with her. Their marriage was changing too, as Margaret learned to let go of some control. Sandra, who had helped Margaret with her plan, sent me a long apology email, admitting what she did and saying she was sorry. I forgave her but kept my distance. Some things just couldn't go back to how they were before. My phone buzzed with a message from Margaret. Would you meet for coffee next week? My therapist thinks it's time we talked face to face. Only if you're ready. I showed David the message. 3 months ago, this would have felt like a trap. Now, it seemed like a genuine attempt to make peace. It's up to you, David said, squeezing my hand. No pressure. I thought about the USB drive with all the evidence I had gathered, still locked in our safe. I hadn't needed it since the day at the hospital, but knowing it was there made me feel safe. I'll meet her, I decided. In public during the day, and I'll drive myself. David smiled. You're setting good boundaries. Your therapist would be proud. The next week, I arrived at the coffee shop early and picked a table where I could see both exits. Old habits die hard. Margaret arrived right on time. She looked the same, but her eyes were softer, less sharp. "Thank you for coming," she said as she sat down. "I wasn't sure you would." "Honestly, I wasn't sure either," I admitted. We sat in awkward silence until our coffee arrived. Margaret spoke first. "I've been trying to understand why I felt so threatened by you. My therapist says it's because you represented change. I fought so hard to keep control that I nearly ruined everything." I stirred my coffee, thinking before I spoke. You know what's funny? If you had just given me a chance, you would have seen that I never wanted to take David away from his family. I just wanted him to live his life the way he chose. Margaret sighed. "I see that now. Seeing him succeed in his business, seeing how happy he is. I was wrong." We talked for almost 2 hours, facing hard truths and setting new boundaries. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. As we got ready to leave, Margaret hesitated. "That day at the hospital," she said, her voice shaky, "you could have pressed charges. You could have ruined me. Why didn't you?" I thought about the USB drive and the months I spent gathering evidence. Because winning isn't always about destroying someone. Sometimes it's about giving them a chance to change. Margaret looked at me, understanding in her eyes. "I don't deserve your forgiveness." "No," I agreed. "But I'm giving it anyway. Don't waste it." That night, I told David about the meeting. "It's strange," I said, "but I think I understand your mother better now than I did before." "Well, you're both stubborn and strategic," he teased. "You just use your powers for good." I laughed, thinking about how differently things could have turned out. I could have used the evidence to destroy Margaret's reputation and tear the family apart. Instead, it forced everyone to face the truth and grow from it. A year later, I deleted all the recordings and videos. Not because I fully trusted Margaret, but because I no longer needed them. We had built something new, not quite friendship, but mutual respect. Margaret still sent me letters every week, but now they were about her progress in therapy and genuine questions about our lives. She even started volunteering at a women's shelter, using her need for control to help others regain theirs. Sometimes the best victory isn't defeating your enemy, but helping them change. Margaret's plan to have me committed had failed, but in the end, it brought about the changes we all needed. "No regrets?" David asked, noticing my thoughtful look. "None," I replied with a smile. Sometimes a broken plan is exactly what it takes to fix what's truly broken.